Welcome back, Quakers, as we're moving into our fourth series of the day, where we're going to watch somebody at the top end of the leaderboard taking on somebody who's struggling down at the bottom in RAISY versus SIB. And we've seen all sorts of games today, Flea. What kind of character do you think this game is going to take up?
I think that the general consensus would be that this is likely to be a very one-sided game based on how good RAISY's been playing and how much SIB has been struggling, right? So let's talk about RAISY first. RAISY currently ranked third on the global leaderboards, representing Team Maestro, one of the greatest players within the Quake Pro League, and he's had a pretty damn successful track record this season as well. 9 wins and 4 losses, but those losses against the likes of Wenger, but also Strong Sage, Rafa, and then at the very beginning, Kilson. But generally speaking, RAISY is just consistently excellent, and the games that he wins are almost always 3-0. Just look at that opening half of the season then. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row, 3-0. That points differential, that's why he's so high up there.
Yeah, and he's definitely just evolved as a player. If I think back to stage 1 and 2, where he had this almost aura of invincibility of him online, where he would just brutalize his opponents, I feel like he's lost that edge, but just gained something else in exchange, which is just more stability and more of a champion mindset, if you will. But he's beginning to bring that back now, I feel, where he's becoming scarier by the week. And even if you look outside the QPL, he's winning virtually every single competition there is.
True.
At the moment. He's just on fire. And, he's still the only player at that level who's been consistently top 3 and 4 without the belt. So
yeah,
he's definitely still striving towards that. And SIB is just one obstacle in his way.
SIB, speaking of, so far hasn't had the best season, to put it mildly. As far as I'm aware, SIB has only secured 1 win that I think was the very first week of the season, followed by 12 losses, most recently against Nasva. So SIB, no stranger to controversy, has struggled to secure himself a significant amount of points, meaning that he is bound to finish more towards the bottom of the leaderboard, and at this point has no chances of making it into top 8 anymore.
No, but to his credit, there are a huge amount of 2-1s in there, and 2-1s against the very best players in the game. You see 2-1 against Wenger, Dramis, Kilson, Maxter, Abek. These are all players when in previous QPL appearances he would have lost 3-0. So, for all of the talk that SIB gets against him, he has taken a big step forward in my books this season, when in previous iterations of the league he would have given up very, very early. So he's definitely developed as a player, and he can definitely make us eat our words and pick up a 2-1 loss. But obviously, I don't think anyone is going out there expecting he will win this. The question is he going to take a map? And if yes, which one?
Now, one thing that will help us settle that is, of course, the picks and bans, which we do have available. So let's take a look. Starting it off, Deep Embrace, RAISY playing Anarchy versus SIB on Nyx. Then we've got Ruins of Sarnath, where we have Ranger versus Galena. And then to close it off, we've got Blood Covenant, where we see Doomslayer go up against the BJ. Dan, any thoughts?
You've got to be a brave man to pick a Nyx on Deep Embrace against RAISY. You've got to be a really brave man.
That's indeed. And also, it's map 1, so it's not as if he didn't have options, right? There's definitely other champions that he could have picked. He could have gone for the Strog, the Doomslayer, the Ranger.
The Clutch?
Plenty. the Clutch even, sure, why not? So, indeed, a bit, yeah, bewildered by that Nyx pick. Maybe SIB has got an ace up in his sleeve, a very specific strategy going into this one. But as far as I'm concerned, that's perhaps a bit of a mispick. Not sure how this is going to work out, knowing how good RAISY is with that Anarchy, especially on Deep Embrace.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest and say map 1 and map 3, I just don't like his picks. I think the Nyx can work if you're at a comparable level to your opponent, but RAISY, he's going against an Anarchy as well. Like, that speed, the utility is just going to be able to absolutely bully the Nyx unless she gets on top and plays incredibly slow, probably just situates herself on that heavy and doesn't really want to move. That's the only real strategy you can employ unless you are connecting with everything and able to control that high ground. it's going to be really tough. And then map 3, BJ on Blood Covenant just seems wild to me because I don't know what it brings. Like, there's very little opportunity you can use the dual wield effectively, because if you pop it, it's unlikely you're going to be in a situation where you can corner your opponent. So your opponent just hides. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And in situations where you've cornered your opponent, the dual wield probably isn't needed. So that's another question mark for me. So let's see how he wants to play it.
Plus, the biggest drawback of the BJ pick is the lack of mobility right there. Whereas RAISY does have the Doomslayer. He's got the double jump. And we saw earlier today already, right? Doomslayer versus another medium with no movement capabilities, Galena back then. BJ, played by Kilson against Kron, secured himself a very convincing victory. And I would favor Galena over BJ on that map. But that is for later. That's for later. First, getting into map 1 of this series. This is Deep Embrace. Starting it off from the point of view of RAISY, who's running Anarchy.
Looks awfully demonic today. Cute little dog in the background as well. Okay. Huge delay on that Mega as well. In exchange, did a lot of damage to SIB and forces out the Ghost Walk. So, gets a good exchange there, but lovely positioning by SIB to pick up the first frag and gets an eye roll.
There we go, yeah, SIB off to an excellent start. Kind of out of position right now though, but RAISY doesn't have a whole lot of weapons to work with yet, no rockets to rain down from above, and SIB actually lands a nice shot in return. Good rail as well, and another.
Very nice.
SIB, 66% rail, relentless.
Ooh.
So far making the Knicks work. Just in time to avoid a lot of rocket damage right there. There we go, RAISY does clean up the frag. Bit of a risky play from RAISY. And SIB, just like we saw from Strong Sage earlier, actually spawning with the starting nail gun. Again.
Interesting.
Yeah, looking for some of those trick jumps, a little bit of movement tech.
Oh, that feels good.
Bit of rocket damage.
Yeah, SIB's very early as well. And as we said, this is kind of what he has to do, though, is as a Nyx, this is the area you want to be in. Unless you feel confident enough to play the high ground, the Mega is where you just need to live your game. Otherwise, you can just get bullied. And lovely rail before the Ghost Walk, but once again, it is a Ghost Walk that's popped for not a lot of utility.
It's also a risky strategy from SIB, right? I feel like he's managed to survive by landing those close-up rails multiple times now, and that's not consistent, that's not reliable. The moment you miss one of those rails at that distance, RAISY playing Anarchy will be on you just like that. And if that happens, SIB is bound to drop a frag. There we go.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, making that nail gun work. But it will be RAISY who secures the heavy. It's RAISY with the weapons. RAISY has completed the unholy trinity. Oh! RAISY actually dropping far more health than I think he was comfortable with.
Yeah.
Messing up the weapon switch a bit right there.
He ran out of ammo, which he did not appreciate. Okay. SIB is living on the edge at the moment, but making the most of these situations.
I'm suddenly extremely curious how many starting nail gun kills there have been in the entirety of the Quake Pro League. I am willing to bet it's less than 5. And this was one of them. Extremely unusual right there.
This is a worrying moment for SIB, though. If he can't defend this Mega, he's in for a little bit of a difficult minute or two. RAISY does connect. He's trying to force this Ghost Walk out, but the tri-board damage is huge. The inject is being held on to for now. He's actually missed out on both major items, so that situation has been flipped on its head entirely. SIB needs that rail, and RAISY is being sloppy with his aim at the moment, not connecting with anywhere near enough. Now look at the stack of SIB.
SIB able to recover very nicely from that affair. And RAISY, it's got no armor, it's already in position. Oh no! RAISY, I think, still visible. Anarchy, with that hoverboard's got a pretty wide player model from certain angles, and SIB figured out exactly where he was. And now RAISY forced to go for the close combat rails. There we go, SIB from below with the shoddy, actually. Putting himself in the lead once again. 10 seconds before Mega spawns. SIB in position for it. Oh, there we go. That's exactly what I was talking about, Dan.
Too early. RAISY going to stick around. He hasn't really got the weapons, but trying to do anything he can with that tri-bolt. He's going to give up another frag. 6-4 for SIB. We said he's got to be brave to play this, and he's playing it in a brave style at the moment. The fact of the matter is, he's just connecting with far more than RAISY. Awfully low. He's stolen away the item, which is big, trying to do anything before he dies, and that's not the end of the world.
Perhaps a little too predictable from SIB to go for the pillar right there. RAISY read him like an open book. There we go, a second before SIB would have had the ghost walk up again. RAISY takes him down. But then again, do you even want to use it in that situation? Yeah, SIB decides against it, which I do believe is the right choice. Oh, there we go, RAISY from down below.
Yeah. And this is the momentum we were talking about in the intro play, about why we were a bit scared for this next pick, because you give up a frag once you pop the ghost walk, suddenly you're just food for your opponent. Now RAISY's beginning to feel himself, beginning to connect with these shots. This is when it could get scary. So SIB needs to slow the tempo. There's still a lot of time left in this map.
Yeah, RAISY even starting to rocket jump himself in position. There we go, 58% on the railgun. SIB has secured more major items so far. 13 for SIB versus 8 for RAISY. But RAISY is slightly out-damaging him. There we go, out comes the ghost walk. I feel like that was a little late for SIB to wait. Because before he popped the ghost walk, he actually sacrificed a whole lot of health. I think he would have been much better off, given the weapons that he had, right? If he had rockets or shotgun, might have been different, but I think he should have used it much sooner.
And that's a really bad time to die as well. Spawning on the far side of the map, he's given up now, the Mega, and consequently a Gauntlet and Heavy to RAISY. So this could be the spiral of death. Another ghost walk going out for no return. RAISY could just push on up like an absolute madman. Strips tries to retaliate with the Gauntlet. I think that pleases RAISY.
He actually got 2 pummels in. Oh, it's 150 damage, so... Oh, that one was so close. RAISY survives, but those defensive rockets from SIB were huge. Luckily for the Maestro player, though, RAISY is able to walk away with the Heavy without taking any more damage. Good read there from RAISY as well. Unable to really execute on it, misses the shot, but he read that perfectly.
Yeah, he did, and RAISY's beginning to feel himself a little bit more now. SIB's kept himself in this game, but now the 6 frag differential is just massive, and the big split between the two mages allows RAISY to do exactly this, which is just bully his way onto the map and explode his opponent all in one fell swoop.
And at this point, what do you do on your SIB, right? RAISY in control. He's the one landing the shots, dealing the damage, securing the items. Oh, SIB has to use that ghost walk so early. Didn't even pick up the railgun, Dan.
No.
He was hoping to at least get rail and then disappear out of there, but no. Unable to secure the weapon that he put everything on the line for, and now RAISY, this is, at this point it's over. RAISY is not gonna let SIB get back into this.
No, and eventually the momentum happened, but this is the momentum we talked about. There is really no getting away from it when RAISY gets ahead of steam, unless you're absolutely the best player in the world and know how to play around it. Even then, sometimes it's inevitable that your opponent's just going to rack up a number of frags back to back because you just don't have any way to defend yourself. And it was a little bit worrying the amount of time SIB was forced to pop the ghost walk with no objective except to stay alive. At that point, you know it's only really a matter of time. And so, you know, it wasn't the cleanest game by RAISY whatsoever, and it was really well played by SIB for the opening 2-3 minutes. But it felt inevitable that that momentum would come eventually.
Yeah. RAISY just, you know, he kept his head cool, right? Kept himself in the game, and I think you saw that from the start. You know, there were a few frags that RAISY suffered early on where his reaction was really just like, okay, fine, SIB's in the lead, right? I'm gonna turn it around. He knew just what he was capable of. He knew how he would approach this series. He knew that, I think in the eyes of just about anyone, he has the better pick. So RAISY just kept calm and collected. Let his strength shine more and more towards the end, and ultimately SIB unable to stand up to the onslaught.
Yeah, and very quickly this game went from being fairly close to, you know, 11 frags. It's a huge margin, and it all happened in the blink of an eye, really. So
Oh.
could have been a lot worse for sure. But you know, well played, really, to both players.
Yeah, absolutely. SIB, I think, kept this much closer than most people would expect, right? So yes, towards the end, the second part of the map was very, very much in favor of RAISY, and the Hungarian player representing Maestro absolutely was in full control. But during the opening, that Nyx play worked out much, much better than I think anyone would have expected. And as you said, Dan, a real tipping point was when RAISY got into control, started really feeling himself, just let that speed work in his favor. And at that point, what's the Ghost Walk used for? To get away. It's a purely defensive tool, just to delay taking more and more damage. And by the time we reached that point in the map, it was clear that RAISY would take the victory.
Yeah, but it also kind of shows you how much has to go in your favor sometimes for that to even work. The opening few minutes was more about RAISY was missing shots and SIB was hitting some amazing shots. And, you know, when you're living on, as you said in the intro, when you're living on that kind of style, if you will, as soon as you miss one, suddenly you're dead. You know, and then suddenly all of that work's gone, and your opponent has an upper hand, but potentially has control. And you almost have to pray you can get back into it at some point. So it's a really high risk pick to play a Nyx on this particular map against any player, let alone someone like RAISY. And you also gave him a counter pick as well, which was the secondary thing. SIB picked first, he opens with a Nyx, and so RAISY has a pick of all the champions at that point to say, how am I going to beat you? And he opted for the Anarchy, and it worked out perfectly in the end.
Yep. Now map 2 is going to be a different beast altogether. No more double lights. Instead, we're switching it up with 2 medium champions on Ruins of Sarnath. So that's a much larger map than Deep Embrace was. And this is going to be Ranger playing the Ranger versus SIB on Galena.
Yeah, this is the only real map where I can respect his pick and think it could work. But and we've seen that in the past the Galena used magnificently on this map in particular, particularly if you want to play a slower paced game around the heavy area. You can obviously set up your fortress of totems down there and solidify your position, but there's obviously a lot of creative uses of the totem. It can also just be for information outside of the tele, etc., etc. So there's a lot you can do here, and at the end of the day, the Ranger is always going to be useful on any map, but particularly on Ruins, when you have that verticality to contest with as well. With the rocket jump or the orb, it gives you a lot to work with. So interesting to see. Obviously, the challenge here is SIB. I expected to play a slow-paced game. You want to be building that overstack, and if you can get that up and you can play that slow game, it really makes your opponent's life quite difficult to lock you down.
Now, one of the things that I do think could help SIB here is that RAISY is not the most mobile. Ranger is not the most mobile champion of the bunch, right? Yes, he's got that orb, but you know, it's not as if he can easily swoop around the map like, say, an Anarchy or a Slash would, and constantly take down those totems. Looks like there's some questioning about whether we're on the right server. So it looks like we're going to head back to the lobby just to restart real quick. So we're going to jump into this map any second now. But as I was saying, Dan, one of the things that I do think could help out SIB is that it's not as if he's up against an Anarchy or a Slash or any sort of just fast champion that is constantly going to be just looping around the outskirts of the map. Now, this is a Ranger. He's got that orb. That's his mobility tool, but RAISY is going to use it sparingly, right? So he has an opportunity to hide those totems. He has a real chance to put away some of those outside of RAISY RAISY's view outside of his normal path and just get that overstack going, just due to the fact that he's up against a ranger here. Now, if it's actually going to come into fruition, if SIB even wants to approach the totem game that way, we're about to find out, but that is something that I think is kind of going to help him here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The only contest to that is that if you want to play a slow-paced game, if you want to play around choke points and play defensive, what the Ranger obviously has the opportunity to do is use that orb just to close that gap, to break through your defense, because you can orb past, you can orb into, and suddenly it's a fight on the Ranger's terms. And that's what you got to be incredibly wary of. If you miss out on a rail exchange, you could then just be orbed into shotgun and you're dead. So
yeah,
that's the tricky one, in that you can't overexpose yourself either, because suddenly the range is just up in your face.
Absolutely. Now we are loading into the map again, just went for a quick reboot, so hopefully everything will be in order this time around as we get into this map 2 of RAISY versus SIB. Now, something we didn't get to talk about, Dan, is actually the match history between these two. Just throwing it out, just a little bit of a tidbit. They've played each other twice in the history of the Quake Pro League, and RAISY has won both of those in a convincing 2-0 fashion. So far, I don't think SIB has been able to secure a single map against RAISY. And I think that we're both in agreement that if during this series he's going to win any map, this is the one, right? It's gotta happen on Ruins.
Yeah, and this is a map where it can happen. You can really draw this out to being a 1-0 game, and we say it time and time again. If you can keep the scoreline close, find any way to do that, all it takes is a bit of a moment of magic, and you can spin a map into your favor. So this is make or break for SIB, and there's obviously a bit of a mental block there against the likes of RAISY as well. So that's something he has to contest with, but we'll have to see. It's never an easy task, and I'm pretty sure he's probably not the only player to never have picked up a map against RAISY either.
Oh, absolutely. There we go, kicking it off. Very aggressive push this time around. RAISY immediately making good use of the LG. SIB doing a decent amount of damage with that nail gun, the plasma, the heavy. But ultimately, RAISY one frag up, and there's around 10 seconds between the major items.
No.
And the float. And RAISY is going to stumble upon one of those totems, and I think that is going to tell him something about SIB's battle plan. SIB wants to start stashing away some of those totems around the map, get that overstack going, because the moment that SIB has 3 totems up, he can actually overstack his healing, and it's basically as if he's got a mega in his pocket.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously not the best start whatsoever. Once again, we already see a big split between these major items, so RAISY can play it pretty much how he wants. SIB isn't even in the vicinity yet to contest for this heavy. He's coming down the back channels, but he's actually going to push on in, having hit that rail. He knows when the timing is. A lovely play by SIB. Again, opening with that rail was absolutely critical to manufacture that frag, so nicely played. RAISY going to use that orb just to detract from SIB and try and get out without taking too much damage, which he's doing fairly successfully.
RAISY now stationary, waiting in place. Oh, he's gonna hear the small armor being picked up. RAISY playing a very evasive game right now. He knows that he's in a bad spot. Almost no armor. Only he's got the rockets to work with, no LG, no rail. Running for his life. Those defensive rockets, they need to be big. The first one already was. I like the pathing here as well. Oh, there we go. SIB actually finds the rail. And at this point, it's all tied up once again. Now Heavy's about to spawn. RAISY already in position, but he doesn't really have the tools to work with. Even has to sacrifice the orb. And then SIB doing the unthinkable, one frag in the lead. But then again, we also saw him get a lead on map 1, and we all know how that turned out.
Exactly. The slight concern, not a big one, is the fact he has no totems up at the moment. So obviously nowhere near the overstack, but at the same time, the way they've been used so far in combat, should I say, to regenerate, is also a completely viable tactic. He's also caught RAISY once here, but going up the jump pad is too aggressive. I mean, he shakes his head in despair, but it's one of those risky maneuvers to try and do that.
All tied up once again, 3-3. Oh my goodness, RAISY. That is brutal. Waiting at the exit of the teleporter. Orb, or shoddy, orb, shoddy. That's all it took. SIB making good use of the tribal though. Watching talks earlier, no dot. But this is a good opportunity for RAISY, because he's forced his opponent off the heavy spawn. And with the delay between the items, I think that RAISY is now in the perfect position to start chaining them together, to set up a rotation and secure both of those. And once he does that, he's going to start hunting for SIB.
Yeah, SIB not even contesting. What? How did that hit 100?
Very difficult angle to say the least, somehow. Does connect.
Nice timing by SIB, he's there,
Yeah.
one dot. He's done huge amounts of damage to RAISY as well. He's getting a little bit cocky, I might say. Allowing SIB to sneak in.
I mean, credit for... Ooh. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. SIB definitely should not have been so careless in moving into the mega room like that, but I was just about to say, credit where credit is due. SIB's combat has been big.
Oh no. Oh, SIB.
There we go. Rails being exchanged. SIB manages to stay alive by virtue of that totem, but RAISY isn't going to let him get anywhere. And now RAISY is starting to slowly extend his lead. Mega is up, SIB will be the one to take it. RAISY realizes he's out of position, can't get there in time. Would be a death sentence to push onward. And is now going to switch back to a much more defensive playstyle. And then, you and I both know that RAISY's defensive play is huge, as he just shows us once again. Perfectly laying down a trap for SIB, reading his opponent like an open book, and then just nailing, gluing him to the wall with that LG.
Coming at you.
SIB trying to take these fights, and yeah, the previous one up the jump pad was interesting, because I thought SIB knew the timing, almost like he wanted to fight there, but definitely wasn't the engagement to take. And yes, he killed RAISY, but at what cost? He's so low, he has to forfeit the heavy now, and is actually probably in a worse situation because of it. So more than, oh, he doesn't even forfeit the heavy. RAISY's giving up items, it seems.
Playing it safe for the time being. He knows that he's got a significant lead. When he gets his ore back, he's also going to have a nice defensive, even an evasive tool to work with. Yeah, RAISY doesn't even want to engage. I mean, RAISY has been described by many as one of the most annoying players to go up against once he goes full defensive, right? He can be so slippery, so difficult to catch, and when you do catch him out, his defensive play is often sublime, always putting himself in a position where you're forced to go through a bad choke point. And that's exactly what he's setting up for now. Although this time around, RAISY has yet to switch to the defensive, he's still the one running the map.
There's a 1-2, nice and simple, and you know, at this point, SIB is trying to contest items without much of a plan beyond, I hope RAISY doesn't turn up. And that's obviously a scary situation to be in. You are helpless at that point, and he's just running away from his opponent. This is Tom and Jerry cat and mouse right now.
There we go, good rail. Oh, another one. And there we go. Once again, RAISY. Just like in map 1.
It's like I'm watching the ghost car in Mario Kart. Just RAISY's just chasing a shadow at the moment. What is going on?
59% railgun accuracy. Oh, SIB. Already calling GG in the chat. 2 minutes remaining. I feel like this is just, this kind of went the exact same way as map 1 went, right? Close game for the first opening few minutes. Even a few moments where SIB secured himself control, the lead even. But then RAISY just turns it around, springs into a higher gear than what SIB can keep up with. And all of a sudden, all the puzzle pieces, they just fall together, right? And all of a sudden, RAISY does the damage when he needs to, secures the items, gets the control going, and then before you know it, SIB just get caught out again and again and again.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is he just got bullied. Like, he didn't feel that RAISY particularly did anything innovative or strategical. He just ran from item to item and just bullied his opponent. It was quite a simple play style, if you will. And at the end there, yeah, a series of unlucky spawns, and SIB just didn't... His brain just shut down, really. He didn't know what to do, so he just ran away.
Yeah. So I think that the final score is going to be 14-4. Now, for those of you wondering, this was the EU server, so I think we're going to head back to NA after this one. And that does mean that RAISY is going to continue his win streak up against SIB, making this the third 3 out of 3 wins for RAISY, going up against the North American player. Now, the final map, SIB still has a shot at securing at least one map for the first time against RAISY in the Quake Pro League, but then map 3, we were both like, that's not gonna happen. That's just the map, the picks. It's not looking good for SIB, is it?
No. I'm interested to watch it to see why he picks it. Is there some new strat I don't know about? I'm gonna say no, but yeah, again, he open picked this, so the Doom was on the board and he decided to opt against it and thought, no, the BJ is what I want right now. So I'm hoping he can show me why.
As do I. Let's see. Hopefully we get some nice melts, pulling out that dual LG, maybe even some dual rockets or dual rail, which is something that I've basically only ever seen Tox succeed at within the Quake Pro League, just getting 2 rails and actually making it work. Because it's so difficult to do. Because as an experienced Quake player, you just become so accustomed to just, the normal firing rate of the rail. It's a second nature. And so when all of a sudden there's 2 and they fire faster, it's very difficult to be consistent with it. And Tox somehow has managed to make it work. So let's see if SIB can maybe make something flashy happen as well.
Yeah, Tox is an enigma, as we know, though. So you're right. It's a difficult art to have. You think having 2 weapons is actually a benefit, but in some instances, 61% LG. In some instances, it can actually be a detraction as well. So yeah, that map was brutal. 4,000 damage to 2,400. But again, SIB, even on the items, so it wasn't a control issue. It was just a mechanical challenge for SIB. He couldn't keep up with the way in which RAISY was playing.
Yeah. Final map. Let's see if this is going to continue. So far, RAISY has always been able to hit the double-digit kills, whereas SIB lingers around the 5 frag average. So Blood Covenant, I think we're both expecting a bit of a bloodbath this time around. RAISY just has so much more mobility, and that has proved critical on map 1 as well, where we saw him use that Anarchy very efficiently against the Knicks. So with that double jump, right, some places to really look at, I think, Dan, are going to be the railgun, right? Bridge to rail, keep your opponent from securing railgun. We saw Kilson do this expertly against Hran in our first matchup of the day, but also just around the center area of the map, getting from catwalk to rockets and back opens up so many new strategies, and SIB really is a very slow champion that lacks most of that mobility.
It just makes your life easier. There's a huge quality of life improvement. It makes the whole map a lot less risky to play. And basically, it's just easier to execute well. So to pick something like the BJ, you have to have a clear game plan in mind as to what you're going to be doing. And if suddenly that gets thrown at his head, the question is, do you have a plan B? Because if not, we're going to see exactly what we saw in maps 1 and maps 2.
Yeah. So let's see what strategy SIB is going to be able to bring to the table. Is he going to be able to keep it close, at least for the first half of the map? Might he even secure a very surprising win that would be? Let's find out. RAISY Gets the railgun spawn. That's exactly what he was hoping for. But actually drops down very early. And this should give SIB at least the opportunity to walk away with the rail if he makes a push for it, because RAISY's still around. SIB had the opportunity. Goes for the tribal jump across. That's pretty creative. RAISY was not ready for it. Ultimately, it didn't amount to much. SIB wasn't really able to convert it into a lot of damage or anything, but still keeping RAISY on his toes.
Yeah, we have seen that a few times today from SIB. If you think about one with the nail guns, you know, got that creativity, but as you say, needs to then use that. It's not just for style points.
Absolutely. Now, pretty slow game to open things up with. RAISY just holding control of that top area of the map. Or SIB rather. Out comes dual wield. But that one rail, it's gonna make him rethink his efforts. That's good for SIB at least. I would have feared for his safety if he was unable to land that rail, and RAISY was. And now SIB falls back onto the Mega. Neither player going all in just yet.
Yeah, and this is the balance at the moment. SIB being forced to just play items, whereas RAISY is quite happy just to sit bridge, sit high ground, pick his opponent apart, and this is why the Doom is just easier to execute. RAISY can do this all day and catch his opponent from behind as well. Oh, the dual wield comes out, just a preventative measure at this point. Oh, what a rail that was.
SIB rightfully cautious about going through the teleporter right there.
Yeah.
He plays it well. He's keeping his opponent at bay. Oh, the drop down at the wrong time, and now RAISY finds the final shot and gets that one frag of a lead. SIB now left without rail or LG.
Has RAISY done any damage with a weapon that is not rail?
Let's find out. Nope. RAISY, 1,000 points of damage, 1,100 even, 56% rail. SIB a lot more varied. Is RAISY just going to continue going rail only? Is this some deliberate strategy that this madman is using?
I think so.
Oh goodness, let's
just practice at this point. It's only 1-0 though.
I mean, RAISY's pretty well known for, you know, making different accounts where he's like, you know, getting to the highest rank in duel by using just this one champion or just this one weapon, right? So, but for him to push that through into the actual Quake Pro League matches, that's that would be something different altogether. So let's see how this pans out for him.
At this point, I think he feels obliged to, even if it wasn't deliberate to start with.
I mean, he's making it work.
No, if he finishes him off at the rail, you know it's happening. Yeah, it's happening.
Or a berserk, that would also be.
Because it would be. This should be shotgun right now, but nope. He wants to rail him.
Oh,
he makes him pay.
Yeah, SIB says, like, SIB is not gonna stand for that kind of disrespect. SIB, no doubt, figured out what that was and said, you better land every single shot if you're gonna try and do that. And the moment that RAISY misses one, misses two, yeah, he really is just going railgun only.
SIB knows he can't fight without a rail, so now I can do whatever I want.
Then what is happening today? First that Tox matchup with with the tribal, and now we're getting RAISY just doing some sort of challenge run in the middle of the Quake Pro League. Oh, there we go.
There's some machine gun damage. It's over.
It's over. Now let's see. Does this open the floodgates for RAISY? Is he now going to start incorporating the LG rockets into his game plan as well? He's got to be careful though. SIB actually securing the lead here.
Yeah, but now RAISY gets a rail spawn, so the game... Oh no, he didn't. He spawned lower.
Heavy's gonna go to SIB again. If we take a look at the major items, SIB clearly in the advantage. 7 majors versus RAISY's 8. But still RAISY was doing more damage than SIB by going rail only. But it looks like he's done with that. The gloves have come off. Now it's just a bare knuckle brawl. As RAISY wants to bring this home 3-0. And this is how he's gonna do it.
Well, we are tied up. Still 2-2. I'm yet to see exactly what the BJ is bringing, though. No truly valuable dual wields just yet.
Nice rail from RAISY. Not that we're used to anything less. This map in particular, still hitting 56% rail.
Think about those rails. You could see how prepared he is for his opponent's positioning every single time. Pure prediction.
And this is what you were talking about, Dan. Just that standard quality of life improvement that you get when you're playing the Doomslayer, right? SIB, he's got to think every single move through. He's got to be so careful with everything he does. And it's not to say that RAISY isn't, of course, thinking about every play he makes, but he's just got so many more opportunities, right? If you're SIB and you want to get from one side of the map to the other, you're going to have to start charting out, you know, a way over there. You're going to have to start pathing how you're going to get to the other side. Whereas when you're RAISY, it's just, there we go. I just double jump across. That easy.
Nice. And this is why it looks so difficult for SIB, because he just doesn't have that ability to play the mid-level the same way RAISY. Oh, lovely by RAISY. Once again, prediction. The combo is there and just makes the game look so simple.
What do you think then? We're gonna see a gauntlet? Is RAISY gonna make that happen? It's gotta be careful though.
Yeah, still.
LG kind of just clipping into the floor right there. Not doing much damage at all. But then again, 1 minute 45 seconds for 3 frags against a Doomslayer that can outmaneuver you any corner. Just don't see it happening anymore.
No, almost feels like RAISY's just playing it out now. SIB coming for a real last-ditch effort. He does get the frag and takes a lot of damage, but the Mega is up momentarily, so can recoup a little bit of health here. The light should be up as well. Didn't see that get picked up before. RAISY has his trusty rail off of the spawn. And with a minute to go, SIB once again is going to have to make these desperation pushes, but as you pointed out, Flea, how do I get across right now?
Yeah.
How do I get across? There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
But by doing so, wow, okay.
Nice. Okay, RAISY just didn't land single shred of damage with the first rocket. Had to move, and then SIB finishes him off. Good play from RAISY, making such efficient use of that double jump, right? Double jump is such a good counter against rockets. It makes you weak, vulnerable to LG. But against rockets, it's an extremely powerful passive.
Yeah, because you don't have to use it, right? So it's almost impossible to actually hit an opponent who uses it well. It's so unnatural to try and aim for a double jump.
20 seconds to go. Some might say there is still time, but then I don't think that we're one of those people. This is over and done. RAISY's got the Mega to fall back on, so even when he takes that rail, RAISY gotta be careful though, at least a little bit. And indeed, he decides not to peek and expose himself to any danger. GG's are called, and RAISY will secure A confident 3-0 win over SIB.
Yeah, and there were moments, obviously, particularly at the start of the games, where SIB came out swinging, got a nice early lead, but once RAISY got ahead of steam, it felt like he was doing what was necessary to get the 3 maps and move on. It didn't feel that he was really trying anything particularly new. He just was, being professional about it, picking up the frags he needed, and then getting on with his day. Whereas for SIB, it didn't ever feel like he had much of an answer. And as soon as RAISY felt that he needed to extend his lead, he just felt like he turned up and did it. Which is a scary place to be in, when we're talking about players in the QPL and someone on the caliber of RAISY could just go, all right, I need a few more frags, let's get those, and then I can sit back and relax a bit more. And that's the fortune someone like RAISY has when he's as good as he is.
Absolutely, and those 3 wins, those 3 map wins are definitely going to be helping RAISY out, right? Because we talked about it a bit at the beginning of the broadcast, but at the top of the leaderboards, there's plenty of room for people to move around and to either secure a better seeding going into the finals or lose the seed that they currently have, right? I think you mentioned, Dan, that there was a possibility that RAISY would drop down as low as 6th. I think is what you mentioned, something along those lines, so...
Just getting my notes up. Because RAISY has to play Maxter on the last weekend. So if he loses that and Maxter then wins his other game, RAISY could drop to 6th as well.
Okay. I don't know if that already accounted for today's score, because this is, of course, going to propel RAISY a bit further. Okay, you were so confident in the 3-0 that it was already part of your calculations.
It was part of my formula, yeah.
Damn. Okay, well, I think with that out of the way, got a quick little summary of how this went, and yeah, RAISY 3-0. For map 1 and map 2, then it definitely was closer than the scoreline would make appear, at least for the first half of the game, right? SIB was in the lead on both of the maps, kept it very close, was in control, but ultimately it ended up falling apart. RAISY kicked it into higher gear and ended up securing himself the win. And then on the final map, I think we can both agree that RAISY kind of, let his foot off the gas a little bit and, gave SIB some more breathing room.
Yeah, and I still didn't see why we got the Blazkowicz, but we'll have to maybe ask him another time, as we don't have time for that right now. So we will be throwing into another quick break, and when we come back, we'll have our featured matches, and Papa Wheat will come to babysit us some. See you in a few minutes.